Hello everyone. I'm Pavan Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Management Studies, SVIT Institute of Technology, Rajangonda. In today's class, we will be talking about banking and financial services. Under this scope subject, the concept of commercial banks, the classification of commercial bank, and the functions of commercial bank would be discussed. Well, before I start with the concept or the meaning of a commercial bank, we would just try to know what does the bank literally mean? How does that operate? We know bank is a financial institution that accepts the deposits from the public. The public might generally be an small savers and that lends loan or that lends the money to the required individuals and institutions. Bank generally offers the credit facilities that we know, and it offers various types of deposits. As a financial institution which transacts with the money and money is money oriented transaction and intermediary between depositors and the needy group, channeling the deposits into lending directly or through capital markets. These are the various operations that the bank generally performs, and it has even got two varieties of operation. The first one is a conventional operation, and the second one is said to be modern operations. Under conventional operations, the same things that we discussed, such as various types of deposits are offered to the customers. It lends money, it collects the various deposits, it acts as the intermediary between the depositors and the needy group. This is all said to be a conventional operations, and when we talk about modern operations, act as a payment agent by conducting checking or current accounts for customers. Paying checks also enable customer payments via automated clearinghouse, wire transfers or telegraph transfers, automated teller machines. All these modern operations have been included in the banking sector. And when we just talk about bank, it is classified into retail banks, investment banks, combined banks, and other banks. And under retail bank, we have got the core concept that is said to be commercial bank. Now, when we just look into the concept of the core framework of a commercial bank, bank has developed over 200 years ago. The nature of the bank has changed as the time has changed. Commercial banks are organizations which normally perform certain financial transactions. It performs a twin task of accepting deposit from the public and make advances to the needy and worthy people from the society. A commercial bank, also called as a business bank, is a type of financial institution and intermediary that lends money and provides a transactional, saving, and money market account and accepts time deposits. So that is said to be a commercial bank. When we just look into the meaning of commercial bank is a type of financial institution that accepts deposits, offers checking account services, makes various loans, and offers basic financial products like certificates of deposits, savings account to individuals and small businesses. So this is said to be the meaning of commercial bank. When we look into the definition, According to Indian Banking Company Act of 1949, a banking company means any company which transacts the business of banking. Banking means accepting for the purpose of lending, of investments, of deposits, of money from the public, payable on demand or otherwise, and withdraw, able by check, draft, or otherwise. This is a definition that is stated by Indian Banking Company Act of 1949. So that is about the meaning and the definition of a commercial bank. And when we look into the core concept of structure, of the structure of commercial bank, it is regulated by RBI, and commercial banks are divided into two types. The first one is the scheduled banks and the non-scheduled banks. Under scheduled banks, we have got this commercial banks and cooperative banks. Now, under commercial bank, we come under the four major operating banking sectors or operating banking systems, that is public sector, the private sector, the foreign sector bank, and the regional rural banks. Now, the name itself defines the public sector bank. Now, what does the public sector bank literally mean? How does it operate? Public sector banks, these are those banks in which majority of the stake is held by the government. When you take into the example of such banks, you get SBI, State Bank of India, Punjab National Bank, Syndicate Bank, Union Bank of India, and etc. So this are said to be the public sector bank, where the major stake is held or it's held by the government. And now, when we talk about private sector banks, and today, private sector banks are the banks that are working in a full-fledged with related to business or any other activities. Private sector banks generally offer a very good amount of services and they charge for it. That is what they want to do since it's their business. So when we look into the private sector banks, these are those banks in which majority of the stake is held by the private individuals. Example, you could get various examples of the private banks operating in India, said to be ICICI Bank, IDBI Bank, HDFC, Axis, etc. Now that is about the private sector bank. And when we talk about the foreign sector banks, these are the banks with a head office outside the country in which they are located. Example, Citibank, Standard Chartered Bank, Bank of Tokyo Limited, etc. These are said to be the foreign sector banks operating. So when we move on to the regional and rural banks, these are the banks which are really working for the regional sector or for the rural sectors. Since when we talk about the regional and rural areas, it finds difficult for the rural people to come into some bank and operate, or might come into some urban area, or come into some taluk level and operate with the banking system. No, they can't do it. So in order to bring the regional and rural public to the banking stream, they brought up an idea or a concept of regional and rural banks. Are these are the Indian scheduled commercial banks or a government banks operating at the regional level in a different states of India. They have been created with a view of serving primarily the rural areas of India with a basic banking and financial services. However, RRBs may have branches set up for the urban operations, and their area of operation may include urban areas too. For an example, when we look in Karnataka or other parts, we have got Kaveri Gramina Bank. This is one of the classical example which is working for the regional and rural sector. So that is about the regional and rural banks under the commercial bank heading. And now when we talk about cooperative banks, it's it is an institution established on the cooperative basis and dealing in ordinary banking business. The cooperative banks are founded by collecting funds through shares, accepting deposits, and grant loans. So that is about the structure of the commercial bank. Now let's look into the other main concept or the other main function of commercial banks. The minute we say the function of commercial bank, it is generally understood that a bank can perform with the aspect or with the main theme of accepting deposits and making loan or making advances. That means a small SB account or a savings bank account holder deposits and a small amount of money into the bank, and that all the things are pooled, and it offers the credit facilities. It offers the loan facility to the other needy borrowers. It might be an entity, it might be a general public, or what are those loan services that it offers are the education loan might be, the personal loan, the housing loan, the vehicle loan, or the business loan. So bank has got various streams to provide loans to the needy borrowers. But it has got one way to get the money is that by accepting the deposits. It might be a savings bank account, the minimum balance that we maintain, or it might be a fixed deposits account, FDs that we maintain in general. So this is about the how the functions of a commercial banks takes place. So when we talk about the functions of the commercial bank, we would come across the primary function and the secondary function. Basically, the primary function is the core function that a bank operates. When we look into the primary function of a commercial bank, primary functions are the basic or a fundamental functions executing by the commercial bank which give birth to all other additional and modern functions. See, as I said, you when the starting of the class, we spoke about the bank where it has got a modern function as well. One was a conventional operation, and the other one was a modern operation. But the main core concept should be the primary function, that is accepting deposits and advancing of loans and the credit creation. Now, when we look on to the further concepts of this, the first primary function would be the accepting deposits. Commercial banks accept various types of deposits from the public, especially from its clients. These deposits are payable after a certain time period. Public deposits are classified into two types: the time or a term deposit and a demand deposit. So that is about the deposits that bank goes across. Time or term deposit, and the other one we have, the basic one we have got is the savings deposit. The commercial bank accepts small deposits from the households or the persons in order to encourage savings in the economy. Next could be a time deposit. These are repayable. Times of deposits are those which are repayable after a certain fixed period. That time deposits cannot be withdrawn by a customer within the period. Okay. They just they have got a fixed maturity period. And the next would be a current deposit. These accounts do not offer any interest. Further, most current accounts offer overdrafts up to a pre-specified limit. So the overdraft facility, as we know, current accounts or current deposits would be offered to the business since they operate with a large scale, and some at one point they require huge amount of money as well. So overdraft facilities have been provided. The bank therefore undertakes the obligation of paying all checks against deposits subject to the availability of sufficient funds in the account. So moving on to the second primary function, that is lending of funds or advancing of loans. I repeat, primary function includes accepting deposits, lending of funds or lending of loans or advancing of loans, and the third one is credit creation. Now we are going to talk about advancing of loans. Advancing of loans, the commercial banks provide loans and advances of various forms. They are sanctioned to the approached customers on certain conditions and provisions that has to be done. They put up certain conditions and certain provisions have been held with that. So that is about advancing of loans. And in advancing of loans, the loans offered by the commercial banks are overdraft, cash credit, discounting bills, loans and advances. These are the various loans provided by the commercial bank. Moving on to the credit creation. Credit creation is also one of the primary functions. It appears when the bank sanctions a loan to a customer. It does not give cash to him, but a deposit account is opened in his name and the amount is credited to his account. He can withdraw the money whenever he needs. Thus, whenever the bank sanctions a loan, it creates a deposit. In this way, the bank increases the money supply of the economy. Such functions are known as credit creation. And when we look into the secondary function, that includes agency function and a general public utility function. General utility function or a public utility function. So moving on to the secondary functions, along with the primary functions, each commercial bank has to perform several secondary functions too. It includes many agency functions or general utility functions. Those are the first agency function. It includes collecting check. The bank collects check or a bill of exchange on behalf of the customers through clearinghouse facilities provided by the central bank. Collecting income. Commercial banks collect dividends, pensions, salaries, rent, and interest on investments on behalf of their customers as well. Next, paying expenses implies that a commercial bank make the payments of various obligations of customers such as telephone bills, insurance premium, school fees, rents. Similar to credit voucher, a debit voucher is sent to the customer for the information when expenses are paid by the bank. And moving on to the general utility function, that is a part two of the secondary function. Under secondary function, we have got agency function, and the second one is general utility function. Under general utility function, bank provides various functions to the or various facilities to the customers. It includes the locker facility where the customer can know, maintain his jewelry, shares, documents, asset related titles, mother deeds, or any other things, confidential matters could be, or the valuable assets could be maintained in this locker facility offered by the commercial banks. Next, the second function under general utility functions are issuing traveler's check. Implies that book issues a traveler's check to individuals for traveling outside the country. Travelers check are the safe and easy way to protect money while traveling. Dealing in foreign exchange implies that commercial bank help in providing foreign exchange to business dealing in export and import. However, commercial bank need to take the permission of the central bank for dealing with the foreign exchange. Transferring of funds refers to transferring of funds from one bank to another bank. Funds are transferred by the means of draft, telephonic transfer, and electronic transfer. And it has got other functions said to be creating money, refers to one of the important function of a commercial bank that help in increasing money supply. For instance, bank lends rupees 5 lakh to an individual and opens and demand deposits in the name of that individual. Bank makes a credit entry of rupees 5 lakh in the account. This leads to the creation of demand deposit in that account. The point to be noted here is that there is no payment in cash. Thus, without printing additional money, the supply of the money is increased. That is about the creating money. Next, electronic banking includes services such as debit cards, credit cards, and internet banking facilities that are offered by the banking system today in the prevailing market. And we know the electronic banking system or electronic banking is spread wide across, taking into consideration from a small business in a 10 by 10 room till the biggest malls or franchising companies or MNCs or any other retail operations has got this electronic banking system or the electronic banking way. So this is about the functions of the commercial bank. And at this session, we discussed about the banking or the banks, and we came into the commercial bank. The structure of a commercial bank has been discussed, and the functions of the commercial bank was put across in this particular session. And finally, I would like to thank for watching the presentation. Thank you.